Welcome to the Rugby Club, Hallam Street, central London. For 20 years, rugby folk from all over the world have been coming here to eat, to drink, and above all, to chat. Rugby gossip. And that's what we're doing here around this table. Playing a game I'm sure you've all had a go at in your own pubs and clubs. We're playing the game of being selectors for the day. Our aim is to pick the world's greatest 15 from the same era as this club, from the last 20 years or so. There are 4 of us on the panel, so there's plenty of scope for major disagreement. Andy Irvine, for 10 years between 1972 and 1982, Scotland's fullback and occasional winger. 51 caps, 273 points, 3 Lions tours, and one of the greatest running fullbacks of all time.
Morgan, McGeechan on the dummy run, this is Rennick, clean through, Rennick out there to Irvine, can Irvine make the line? Oh, what a try!
Andy Ripley, author, poet, leverage and management buyout consultant, and perhaps the most athletic forward ever to play international rugby. Like Andy Irvine, a member of the all-conquering British Lions side of 1974 in South Africa. On either side of that year, 24 caps for England at number 8.
Ripley charging and fixing the line. And what a popular try that will be for Andy Ripley.
David Kirk of Auckland and the All Blacks. As a scrum half, he cut his international career short by swapping the All Black shirt for the dark blue of Oxford University. But by then, he had already gained a notable sporting first. It was David Kirk, as captain of the All Blacks, who held aloft the World Cup, the Webb Ellis Trophy, for the very first time in 1987.
Kirk, Fox, Jones, Kirk! David Kirk!
And I'm Eddie Butler, a Welshman, out to see that standards of bias and favouritism are thoroughly maintained. We start with the man at the back, the fullback. Our contenders are JPR Williams, one of the heroes of the great era of Welsh rugby in the 70s. 8 caps for the British Lions. And then the Frenchman from the Basque region of France, the most capped international player of all time, Serge Blanco. The All Black that was lost so early to rugby league, John Gallagher, who even in his short time managed to rewrite the way attacking fullbacks should play.
If we're talking fullbacks, I think it's important at the beginning we establish where this team is going to play and maybe the time of year, because I'm sure that'll have some sort of bearing on the side. I don't know whether you guys agree or not, but...
OK, we're going to agree on perfect conditions somewhere in the world. A perfect condition for running open rugby.
Okay.
So let's have it. JPR.
Perfect conditions somewhere in the world. We talk in here then, Kirk, we're going to be talking Eden Park in August. Eden Park in August, right?
Well, certainly not Twickenham, that's for sure.
OK, Eden Park in August, looking at fullback. I know nothing about fullbacks. Purely because of my own prejudice, which I'm subject to, I'd go for JPR Williams.
David Kirk.
Well, I don't like to just be contradictory for the sake of it, but I mean, John Gallagher seemed to me to have all of the attributes that were required, and I think we should be clear about why we choose who we choose. Do we choose them because they're great attacking players, because they're fast runners, because they have the skills, because they're great defenders? Because unless we look at our selections in a somewhat analytical way, it'll be too emotional. And I go for Gallagher because I think that not only was he wonderful under the high ball, very gutsy, but he provided incredible pace, such as Blanco provides, and he provided, in the modern game, this is where I would disagree with JPR. JPR had the advantage of playing with man-on-man defence, 1-for-1, corridor for the fullback. Gallagher had to make his pace on the outside. I go for Blanco or Gallagher, but Gallagher.
It's McDowell in the tidy up on the 22. Back to Fox. Schuster left out. Stanley. Kerwin. Gallagher was up. Terry Wright on the left wing side. Gallagher backing up. Great run by Gallagher. Taken out right by the corner flag. Serge Blanco in his 70th international met John Gallagher face to face, and what a good tackle it was.
Out to Rouget Tamar. Gallagher waiting. And away goes John Gallagher, opening it up. Now the chase is on. The Bizier back for the French. And good work by the little halfback and captain. But John Gallagher showing his exceptional pace and skill on that occasion.
Kirk frees it. Fox. Long ball to Stanley. And Gallagher is in under the post.
If I could just plead a case for JPR Williams, I thought he was the greatest of all that set of Welsh backs. He couldn't kick, he couldn't run, he wasn't particularly dynamic coming into the... But he dominated every single rugby field he played on. He was just one of those massive figures around whom everything else operates.
Yeah, I'd have to contradict you there. You say he couldn't kick. He wasn't a great kicker, but he was by no means a donkey. He could put the ball away when it really mattered, and he could run. The fact that he couldn't run like Gerald Davis or J.J. Williams, perhaps, but he could actually run, and he was very powerful, and he also had a very deceptive sidestep as well. But Kirky's come up with a good point. You've got to talk about balance, and in fact, the most balanced of all the players that we've spoken about is probably Gallagher, because he's not got as good a defence as JPR, but it was still a very good defence. He's not quite as quick as Blanco, or he's not got quite Blanco's flair, but he's edging towards it, where JPR would be a good bit short of that. I can sympathise with Andy, because I played with JPR, and I don't think I can ever remember JPR playing a bad game. He was always absolutely rock solid.
Edwards waiting. John Williams is on this side. What will he do? John Williams has beaten one man. He's going to get there. Williams! Williams! Well, this is what John Williams' play is about. Batty. It's a little too far for him, or is it? He keeps it in play brilliantly. The 25. A great tackle. A marvellous tackle by John Williams. David Duckham. Lambert misses him. Kilpatrick as well. Colling was in that again. Derek Quinnell. Dawes. Williams. Gibson. Gibson. Slattery to John Williams.
But if you were 6-7 points down, 5 minutes to go, and you had to have someone in your side to pull out the stops, I think that someone would probably be Blanco. And to give Blanco fair credit, he has lasted much longer. He's been at the very top for 12 years.
World record number of caps, 80
well,
caps.
That doesn't matter so much, because these days they include caps against some pretty average sides. Until about 10 years ago. Well, no, it does make a big difference, because until 10 years ago you wouldn't get caps against some of the no disrespect to them, but some of the minor sides. But I think Blanco has consistently, for the last 10 years, he would be in anyone's top 3 or 4 in the world.
This game, the fastest man on the field. Blanco's outside. Michael Liner couldn't pick it up. Rodriguez. Blanco for the corner. I think he's there. And that surely is the try that has put France into the World Cup final.
This is out to Lafong. Lafong does Blanco outside him. Marvellous running by Blanco. Blanco could well score a try here. I think he's going to get there first. The French captain has done it. It is an incredible start for them and a magnificent try.
Here it comes, Liner. Long cut out. It's Williams. Blanco. Into touch. Oh, magnificent tackle there by the French captain.
Okay, fair enough, Andy, you've said least, so put your head on the block first. Pull back.
JPR.
JPR Williams. 1 vote for JPR. David.
I'll go for Gallagher.
A wet day, definitely JPR.
Perfect conditions,
If we're
perfect
talking
conditions.
perfect conditions, I would edge marginally towards Serge Blanco.
Well, work your way out of that one, Eddie.
So, this is round the table bias. I'm going to go for JPR Williams for no other reason than he's a Welshman. And I do think he was one of the colossal figures of world rugby. And I think Serge Blanco, under a high ball, I'd like to have a rock there rather than a rapier on the counter-attack. Not easy, but the first name on our world's greatest 15 belongs to the fullback, and it's JPR Williams. Right, Andy, we're going to take a bit of a quantum leap now from the man at the back straight up into the front row, and we need some props. The twilight world of the front row forwards. At loose head, we have Fran Cotton, capped 31 times for England over a 10-year period. On the tight head, Graham Price of Wales, 41 caps for Wales and a record 12 caps for the British Lions. Also at tight head, the mighty little Frenchman Robert Paparambourg, the world's leading try-scoring prop with 8 tries. And then a current player, Steve McDowell, the judo competitor from the Commonwealth Games, are not bad on the left-hand side of the scrum either.
I would go for bulk, and I'm going to stick Franny in at loose head prop. And the reason for that is that he brought the best in people, not because he was necessarily better than Steve McDowell or had better technique than the others, but he tended as an individual to bring the best out in people. People would play well for Franny, people liked Franny, and he was a strong, solid player.
David, bulk, but the world of rugby has changed.
You're right, though, Eddie. The world of rugby has changed, and scrummaging is very important. Bulk and the line-out is very important. It's also incredibly important that props now get around the field and have impact, you know, between scrums and rucks and mauls. They run with the ball, they pass, they act as links between backs and forwards. That's McDowell's great strength.
Schuster following. Again, pressure for Leeds. He took it, and there's a try to McDowell. First points to New Zealand.
Driven away by the hard men of the New Zealand pack who got their act together after that explosive 12 minutes early in the second half. Look at that from Steve McDowell. Look at the leg drive as they charge in over the touchline at halfway. Marvellous run there by Steve McDowell, who saved his best till last.
For all that, I remember Fran Cotton as an incredible rock in the 1977 Lions when they came to New Zealand. And I think I would go for him as well.
Andy, you spent most of your life trying to avoid them at all costs.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why I'm still in one shape. I've got no doubt, Eddie, I would definitely go for Franny Cotton. And what Kirky perhaps doesn't appreciate is that Fran Cotton wasn't just a rock. In fact, believe it or not, he was actually an athlete, because he could run with the best of them. In fact, I can remember Franny playing in the Murrayfield Centenary Sevens in 1973 when England won the event, and they won it in a canter. And Franny was in that seven, and take my word for it, he could run and he could sidestep, but he was also an immensely powerful man. In fact, he was so powerful, he could play on both sides of the scrum. I've got no doubt that he would definitely be my loose head.
Laurie sets it up to number 8, Laurie Knight. The All Blacks just outside the Lions, 22. Now Robertson again. Finds support from Doug Bruce. Bevan Wilson with Brian Williams outside. Wheeler covers. Cotton takes the tackle. What a great piece of work by the prop forward. Lynn Davis, 15 metres out. The All Blacks on the rampage. Can they win the loose ball? The Lions deny them, but that was a fine New Zealand attack. And the referee has given the scrummage as a result. Just inside New Zealand's half. Into injury time now. Fran Cotton trying to drive over, but the ball buried, and the scrummage again awarded by referee Dave Miller. Then it restarts. Price, Brown and Beaumont quickly up. That's Jeff Squire. Still the close drive work, led there by Fran Cotton. But somehow New Zealand win possession, and Davis puts it way downfield with a perfectly judged kick.
I tend to go with Fran Cotton as well, because I think, given that times have changed, I think Fran Cotton was a good enough footballer to say, right, times have changed, I'll lose a stone and a half, scrummaging isn't quite so important, I can become the Steve Dowell, the core at this new driving, churning maul. I think he was capable of doing that. So, Fran Cotton has it.
Unanimous.
On the tight head, the list seems a little bit shorter. David, perhaps if I can start with you. The All Blacks on their last tour actually played against Graham Price, and they paid him a massive tribute after the game. So, for me, the most capped Welshman of all time certainly features on that list. But I think there's a little Frenchman as well who was a little nugget. We've mentioned Robert Paparambourg, who's more involved now with French politics than the sports field. But I think those two, it must be between those two.
I agree entirely. And Price, again, it was a great athlete. I mean, if you remember that wonderful try he scored in one of his first tests, maybe the first one, kicking the ball all the way out the field and out-sprinting the backs.
75 in Paris, first cap.
First cap, and yet immensely powerful in the scrum and a real laster. I mean, he held together some wonderful Welsh front rows. I mean, I would go for Price. I don't know Pepper and Board as well, but you only have to look at him to know this guy was a great prop, and he was an athlete as well. He could handle the ball like all Frenchmen.
The pass to Dork from Bertrand going to ground, but still France in possession. Luke's despairingly Vacherin. The charge downfield from Graham Price. And Price, this could be a dramatic score. They'll never believe it in Pontypool.
And Wales have cut the line out to 4. Charlie Falconer, number 1. Jeff Wheel, Alan Martin, Mervyn Davies. A great jump by Martin. Edwards gives it to Graham Price. Price, what a good move. And there you saw the aggression of those Pontypool forwards, much to the liking of the Welsh section of the crowd. Graham Price, number 3, the tight head prop, getting to within a couple of yards of the English line.
Certainly there's plenty of spirit about this English defence, but still they're up against it. Bastia and Papa on board set up the drive, and Bastia may have got the touchdown. It's a try for Papa on board in the end. In the middle of the line, first Bastia, and then this mobile prop Papa on board.
4 lijn staan. En is het 3? Is het 3 dat dan Papa aan boord is? Papa aan boord.
And a charge for the line and a score by one of the French forwards. Papa and Board, I suspect, is the man who went over.
I would actually disagree with David. I would go with Papa on board because, well, Pricey was an athlete and he could run around and he's a great loose player. Papa on board really was the rock, but he was also immensely mobile as well, and I would say even more powerful than Price. You say he was a small Frenchman. In fact, he wasn't. He was about 16 and a half, 17 stone, condensed into about 5'10", but he was a great player. In fact, of all the props I've ever played with or against, he's the one I would remember most of all, and I would definitely have him in my side.
In this case, on that side of the scrum, I go Pepper on board.
Can I just have a recap here? We all seem to be Papa on board.
Price.
Well, I must, out of, again, sheer bias, I mean, I played behind Pricey for 14 years, and I think the marvellous thing about Price, when he first started playing for Wales, he was 14 and a half stone, and in any age, that is minute. And yet he became one of the great scrummaging props of all time. So that makes it 2-2, and I, as chairman, command a casting vote here. So I'm going to give it to Graham Price. An Anglo-Welsh affair. Fran Cotton takes the loose head, and Graham Price of Wales, the cornerstone tight head position. Right, we just need to complete the madhouse, the hooker position in the front row. Here's the list. Peter Wheeler, 41 caps for England over 9 years. Bobby Windsor, 5 caps for British Lions, 28 caps for Wales. Sean Fitzpatrick, a giant in the current All Black side. And another current player, Brian Moore of England. David Kirk, something perhaps on Sean Fitzpatrick. You played with him in the 87.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a funny thing, though, really, isn't it? Over the whole of the last 20 years, there's no one particular hooker who springs to mind. I mean, they're all great players, but all very good players, but none great. I will go for Fitzpatrick as the best of the bunch. For a number of reasons. I played with him and I know how powerful an influence he can be. He is very big and very strong and has a great influence on the power of New Zealand scrummaging. But he's also just wonderful with the ball in hand, incredibly combative, just a powerful man. I go for Fitzpatrick.
We welcome viewers from Great Britain to this live telecast coming to you. And it goes to Fox. This is Walter Little, number 12. Here's Innes again, but they're getting across, and you see the tackle there was number 7, Brendan Nasser. That's the job the Aussies want. But here's Kerwin with the ball. Slipping net by Jones. Tom Kerwin, right inside. And the try is scored by Sean Fitzpatrick. This incredible man who waits in the wings and gets tries, and that is his 5th try in Test matches. Fast turnover by Graham Basham, swinging wide. Everybody was on to Kirwan. He beat Nick Farr-Jones, rolled the ball back inside, and look at Sean Fitzpatrick waiting out by the touchline, juggled it on his hands, and across for the try. Outside the 22. Fox, they've got numbers, it's 4-on-2. Gallagher, right. Good defence by Perrault. Fitzpatrick, a try for Sean Fitzpatrick.
Andy Irvine.
Well, I played with Peter Wheeler and Bobby Windsor, and I must say in the early 70s, Bobby Windsor was unrivaled. Very, very powerful, very aggressive, and of course, you know, possibly the greatest character rugby football's ever known as far as wit and camaraderie is concerned. Peter Wheeler also was a very good player, class player, great ball player, good motivator.
It's Kirkpatrick. Brown there with the shoulder padding. Price at the front from Wheeler, well back to Brynmore Williams. Lovely service to Bennett. Fenwick it is now. Fenwick still going. What a strong run. Tries to find support and gets it from Wheeler. There's only Farrell to beat. Wheeler cutting inside. The Lions flip it back. And going surely was offside. Yes, the whistle's gone for the penalty.
Oh, and there's a real chance for Peter Wheeler. 5 metres short of the Welsh line. They're going for the drive over try.
Having said that, again, I'd probably go with David because Fitzpatrick is just so powerful, and I mean, he could easily play prop these days. You know, he's an enormous man. He's quick. He's aggressive. In the All Black pack, he's obviously got great technique as well, whether it be rucking, driving, tackling. I think I'd probably go with David and go with Sean Fitzpatrick.
Yeah, I must admit, Bobby Windsor in the early 70s and the late, well, perhaps the mid-70s, when he took over from John Pullen on the South African British Lions tour, he was such a major force in the game. He was so great that he even won the daffodil eating contest on that tour.
Yeah, I mean, the stories about Bobby are absolutely legend.
Bobby Windsor working it back. Good support from Trevor Evans. Clive Burgess to Edwards. There's an overlap here if they can move it fast enough. Fenwick switches it to Bennett. Bennett with a lovely break. Bennett still going. Butcher. Gerald Davis with the chance. Dick Milliken still on his feet. The Lions drive in. Roger Utley, 5 yards from the Springboks line. Bobby Windsor, Edwards, Milliken, JPR Williams to JJ Williams, a yard short. And the touch judge's flag is up.
The problem that current players have got, people like Brian Moore or even Sean, is that like Bobby Windsor, Pete Wheeler, Johnny Pullen, they're never going to play another bad game. In as much as, whereas these other guys, current players, are still going to be out there doing it. So it's hard in a sense putting a team together like this. They have to face that. We have to make that sort of decision, I suppose.
Collins, Jones, moving from the back to Allen, Phil Davies. Andy Allen's tap, but that's manna from heaven for Wade Dooley. And this is Moore on the burst. Now we'll see how mobile he is. Moore. Just short of the 22. Hill. Winterbottom. England again through Rendell. Now it's Moore once more. Hill. Back inside is Rendell. Rampant indeed. Skinner. 2 metres short. Rob Andrew sets it to the pack. It's there again. Hill. The smuggle ball.
The England forwards have got round so quickly today. They've really got to the action points desperately quickly. And look at Paul Rendell, number 1, in a superb rucking position. Doesn't ruck up the sides, but goes right in the middle. Hill once more. Moore is away. Yes, the Nottingham fellas to the fore here.
I'm going to go, because of his weight and because his dad was an All Black, with Sean Fitzpatrick.
David Kirk?
Yeah, Sean.
Yeah, I think we're unanimous in that.
I'm going to go for Sean Fitzpatrick. I think he's massive. I think it's a unanimous verdict.
Yeah.
So the first All Black appears in our team list. Sean Fitzpatrick at hooker. And he completes a front row which looks like Fran Cotton at loosehead, Graham Price at tight head, and at fullback, JPR Williams. We move to the second row, and perhaps we need to break this down into front jumper and middle jumper.
Yeah.
And,
The men from the boiler room. Bill Beaumont, Grand Slam captain in 1980. Colin Meads from an earlier era, a giant for New Zealand. Another giant for New Zealand, Andy Hayden, from the middle of the line-out. Another All Black, Gary Wetton, now playing on for 10 seasons. The Blackpool Tower, Wade Dooley, a colossus in England's current Grand Slam pack. Frick Dupre from an earlier era, one of the most fleet-footed of the Springboks. And after him came Broon of Troon, Gordon Brown, 30 caps for Scotland, 8 for the British Lions.
Andy, you were closer to these people. You even picked up a couple of caps in the second row.
Thanks, I'm glad you said that, Eddie.
Of the list you've actually read out, and there's a whole series you could add to that, but of the list you let out, if I'm going to look at them, I'll go for Frick Dupre. Now, in a sense, because the last time he played he was quite a small man, but I mean, he was very, very quick, very, very mobile. I'll probably go for Frick Dupre and also Colin Meads. Now, both of these are legends to me, and how good they were compared to current players, I'm not too sure. But they had such a voice of opinion that have supported them and carried the legends forward. They must have been great players. And even though that is a fairly slim basis, I'm going to go for Frick Dupre and Colin Meads.
The stag is Dupre, Frick Dupre. That's jumping in straight across there. Crossing in.
With Arnold inside him, and it must be a try if he ties his pass right. No, he's left it too late. Briscoe. Still they keep moving. Arnold again with another chance. John Graham. And heaven knows how many overlaps. And here goes Colin Meads, and will anybody stop him? No, he's there. What a try. Forwards and backs alike, from the left wing right back to the lock. This king-size New Zealand forward, whom all the boys in this game here are saying is just about the greatest lock forward who's ever come here.
Still in Lions territory. Bevan's throw. Meads, the big man himself, the mighty Meads. Beautifully to Cottrell. Wayne Cottrell. Good stuff this, the number 8 forward, Sutherland. Nicely back. Here he is once again, the man himself, 10 yards short of glory. The slip in, Mervyn Davis, forced over his own line. The deflection came from Kirkpatrick. This is Colin Meads once again, taken by John Taylor. With him was Peter Dixon. Good ball back that to Sid going. Steals away close. John Dawes it is who tackles. Oh, and that really... Well, the way that they climbed in there to John Dawes, who could not possibly have got away from that ball.
David Kirk, would Colin Meads have coped with life in the middle of the line-out?
He would have had to jump at number 2, and we'd move Andy Hayden.
So we put Andy would have two relatively small men.
Yeah.
With
Relatively small men by car standards, yeah.
Okay.
That would be my major concern about Andy's selection. That it's crazy. You can't pick two guys of. I mean, Meadsy Pine Tree was about 6'4", I think, but you know, tippy toes boots type of thing. He was an immensely powerful guy, but he would have had to jump at number two in the last 20 years, I think. And Frick Dupre, great athlete again, good runner, but you couldn't play them both. And I would play Meads. Taking Andy's basis, he is an incredible legend in a country like New Zealand, where legends in rugby abound in some senses. He stands above them all. He's almost an icon of New Zealand rugby. So Colin Meads, because he is Colin Meads, because he had such an influence on the game and he played for so long. And Andy Hayden, because he was just so good. He had a relatively slow career. He started in 1972, played one tour over here and then was dropped, didn't play again for 5 years. But he had an immense influence on the All Black style of rugby and the All Black play, on and off the field, I have to say, through the 70s and 80s.
He was a fairly rebellious character, wasn't he? I mean, he became the sort of Mr. Shop Steward of the New Zealand drive towards better conditions for players. And he also did some very naughty things on the pitch. I mean, he leapt out of a line-out in Cardiff.
outside the Lions 22. Mexted, Loveridge, Dunn. Almost a bit too clever that time, but escaping almost. And still New Zealand turn, win possession. The pack set it up like clockwork. The Lions cannot hope to cope with this. Mexted, Ashworth in possession, being driven to the line. And still looking for possession again. They're just those few centimetres short. Hayden has scored. Andy Hayden, in what may be his last international, made sure he got up with that ball.
So it's a scrummage on the Lions 22 midfield. Good, effective spoiling by the Lions, but nevertheless Lynn Davis sets it out. Bruce Robertson, Brian Ford, good tackle there by Bircher, but on the Lions goal line. The All Blacks drive in, it's loose, they have the ball, they go over the line, they get the try. Andy Hayden, the try scorer. Again, New Zealand capitalising on the loose ball. Here was the position set up. Doug Bruce to Bruce Robertson. The long pass to new cap Brian Ford. He cuts inside, is held by Wheeler and Bircher. But watch how the ball now comes loose. Hayden comes in with the loose ball there. Have the Lions anything left? Beaumont wins it well. Hayden on the burst. What a great run by the second row. He has support. Bircher denies him the pass. But Davis sets it to Bruce. A chance surely now for New Zealand. Osborne it is to Bruce Robertson. The cover's there, but Robertson still in possession. Ford is over the line. Has he got the try? The referee has decided it's a 5-metre scrummage. That was so close. There was Ford. Bircher was there. Evans was there.
I go for Hayden just because he was an immense influence on the game, not only his line-out time, but in terms of taking kick-offs, taking drop-out 25s. He was a thinking lock, and he caused the game to revolve around him a lot, and subsequently had a lot of influence.
Kid on where he's going to throw it. Bill Beaumont. Oh, through he goes again.
No discussion of the second row can be complete without mentioning Bill Beaumont.
I tell you, you never have to point Bill Beaumont in the right direction, because there's one way he goes forward. Getting a great clap from down below is the English skipper. Only 3 short of the record of number of times that England have been captain. The record's 13, and this is his 10th time as skipper. Utley driving.
Not the biggest of forwards, Bill Beaumont was all heart.
Smith tackled by Duggan, inside to Beaumont again. The ball laid back beautifully for Smith. Copybook stuff by the
He slipped easily into the 1977 Lions pack, rated as one of the greatest packs of all time, and continued his form to become the linchpin of the 1980 Grand Slam pack, of which he was the captain.
Smith feeds Neary. A Northern Division ploy. Now it's Smith again, out to John Horton. John Horton running round Terry Kennedy. Horton hoists. In comes O'Brien. Oh, he was never at it. Could it be a try for Beaumont? Beaumont thrusting over. Can they get it down?
The captain of England held up, but his side would not be stopped for long. That was the year when England won the Grand Slam, and Beaumont was rewarded by being named captain of the 1980 Lions to South Africa.
Getting a try, and it would have been his first for England in a major international. What a lead this big lad's given his side. The wee pat on the chin there from Steve Smith, his Lancashire colleague. And the whole of Twickenham, at least the English part of it, calls for a heave, a heave.
It's one of the great unglamorous jobs of rugby, pushing in the second row. But nobody heaved and shoved harder for longer periods of time than Bill Beaumont. He earned the respect of every front row forward he pushed behind, and he also earned the respect of the back row men behind him for his handling skills and his instinctive nous to be in the right place at the right time around the field.
John Scott to Smith. Smith inside to Horton. Horton bursting through, but running into half of the Irish side. Lays it back neatly. Back from Beaumont. Smith along the line. Carrollton getting the pass from Preston. They're 15 metres out from the Irish line.
Beaumont's career was cut short after a series of blows to the head. It's no coincidence that England's fortunes without Beaumont suffered badly. Without his direction and leadership, England rugby went into the doldrums for a full decade, and it wasn't until 1991 that they regained the honour of the Grand Slam champions.
This could be the last scrummage of the match. Again, John Scott. Here he goes. John Scott threw on his own. A brilliant number 8 try.
3 years before John Scott's try in England's Grand Slam, Billy Beaumont had been sent to New Zealand as a replacement. And in the engine room of the British Lions side, he joined Gordon Brown of Scotland.
Duggan was very quickly in there, and real commitment between those two packs of forwards. Gordon Brown, you can see his padding there on his right shoulder.
Brown's was a controversial career. Scotland refused to pick him after he was sent off in a club game. But when he was fully fit, he was much respected outside his own country. And when on the Lions tour, he proved himself one of the most mobile forwards of all time.
Duggan through with the boot, and that was a lucky one straight to Gordon Brown, up to the All Blacks 22. Quinnell again, McGeechan, J.J. Williams with Irvine outside. Go dummy from Williams, and that's a great try. A magnificent try by J.J. Williams.
Gordon Brown's support leading to a try by J.J. Williams. But it wasn't always in such a supporting role that Brown could enjoy himself. Sometimes he got on the score sheet himself.
Bosch with Bennett at him. There's Bennett nailing his man, and Ian McCallum in desperation. Taken by Gareth Edwards. Edwards 5 yards short. Gordon Brown scoring again. The Lions can't believe it. They throw their arms in the air. Real panic in the Springbok camp. Really, it was Ian McCallum in defence. He missed his kick. Gareth Edwards was there. Edwards it was, charging straight down the far line, and there, Gordon Brown, his 5th try of the tour. But my word, he'll never forget a try he scored at Loftus Versfeld.
If Gordon Brown was quick, then Gary Wetton of the All Blacks is even quicker. For 10 years, he's been gracing the engine room of the All Blacks, adding a new dimension of mobility to the second row manual.
Best try of the match from the All Blacks. They really had it going that time. Picked up by Gary Wetton. Yes, he's got his first test try as Gary Wetton in his 30th test match.
Well, half the forwards wouldn't have seen the try because there was quite a dust-up in behind from the scrum, and most of the Welsh pack were there, and that's where they were probably missing at the time that the All Blacks drove for the try.
Colin Meads was the ultimate in the powerful, driving, nitty-gritty type of second-row forward. Wetton is different. He's a disciple of the more mobile, modern game. The All Blacks in the 80s totally dominated the world game. Three-quarters and forwards working together.
Here's Terry Wright, Murray Pierce, Gary Wetton. And no, he didn't get it down.
The finishing, though, was not always perfect. In 1983, the All Blacks didn't look to beat everybody by 50 points as they did by the time of the World Cup in 1987. But even then, Wetton was still setting new standards.
22. Great surge by him. Tries to find Nexted. It's eventually fly hack back to Gary Knight. Knight, 12 metres out now from the British half line after that surging run by the All Black second row.
I think we can take it that the front of the line out is going to belong to Colin Meads.
Yep.
Which leaves us with a problem in the middle. We got Frick Dupree suddenly becoming a middle line-out jumper.
Okay, I would draw that.
I'm tempted to go for Wade Dooley. I think the England pack at the moment really is a major force, and I think that without Wade Dooley, it isn't a force. I think you can say the same about Dean Richards to a certain extent, but I think when Wade Dooley left the field in Argentina last year, suddenly England went from a winning position to a losing position, and I just feel that without Wade Dooley, a great pack ceases to be one.
But that's more of a criticism of the quality of the rest of the England pack.
There's no way that Wade Dooley
no.
would have won many caps in New Zealand. He's not technically capable of doing it.
Nor is he enough of an athlete.
No.
I'll tell you what, I'm English, we need a majority. I'm going to go for Wade Dooley as well.
Outrageous.
At the start of his international career, Wade Dooley may not have been that athletic, but 4 years later on the Lions tour, surely that was all different.
Lost ahead by Maguire. They're putting themselves under pressure. Here goes Dooley. The Lions pack on a roll here. Young supports. 24 metres out. Andrew. And it's Evans. And the mark goes to Martin, but the referee has spotted some offside.
Wade Dooley played in the final 2 tests, which the Lions won to win them the series. Even before that, he'd been doing the same for England.
Good work by the pack. Halliday, Webb in the middle. Gardner with the tackle. Paul Ackford, Dean Richards, Jeff Probyn, Andy Robinson, Brian Moore, Wade Dooley. All the pack getting in on the act.
We'll let the captain of the World Cup New Zealanders have the vote here.
I saw Andy Hayden. I played with Andy Hayden, and I'll go for Andy.
So the All Blacks are starting to dominate our world's greatest 15 pack. Colin Meads and Andy Hayden make up the second row. Now we need the man to lock it all up, the number 8. And here's our list, starting with Mervyn Davies, Merv the Swerve, 38 caps for Wales. Dean Richards, such a star of the current England side. Morley du Plessis from an earlier age, 22 caps for South Africa, 15 times their captain. Wayne Shelford, a huge influence in the World Cup side of '87.
Wayne Shelford, as you say, was immensely influential. Not a line-out jumper. He has that black mark, I guess, against him. He's not going to win too much ball at the back. So you need to play tall players around him, but tremendously skillful and influential in the tight play and using the ball at the back row. I'm very tempted to go for Morley du Plessis because he seemed to me to satisfy most criteria. He was fast, he was aggressive, he was an athlete, he could win the ball in the line-out, and there's no way we can choose the best forward pack of the last 20 years without having a South African in it.
And Morley du Plessis was certainly out of the top draw. He had height for the line-out, he had the cunning to be in the right place at the right time, and he also had deft little ball skills too.
Hope looking for a gap. Morley du Plessis outside the sleeve, also can't take it.
And he too could get on the score sheet.
Ball not thrown in by Astra that time. He's back to take it. Du Plessis. Morley du Plessis scores for South Africa.
Andy, would you have played against du Plessis in '74?
I played against him twice. Knew him very well, and what Kirky says is absolutely right. An outstanding player, Morley du Plessis, outstanding, and I have no problem with him being there. Looking at current players, I do look at Dean Richards, and he's something special. Maybe like Wayne Shelford, to be a truly effective number 8, he wasn't that tall, or isn't that tall. Maybe that's but he's a rock. I mean, if this wasn't in the ideal circumstances and an ideal ground and an ideal day, if it was Pontypool on Tuesday night, you'd go for Dean Richards, but it's not. So I'm going to go for a runner. Morley du Plessis was a terrific runner.
Richards holds it in. The secondary drive goes in. It's superb control. Richards will go now, and he scored his second try, and that surely is the one that ties it up for England.
17 minutes remain. No knock on. Harriman spins it to Richards. Good driving run by Richards. Gets the pass in well to Edgerton. Moore. Mobile England pack. No! Onto it again. Onto it for the corner. Yes! No doubt. What a brace of tries by the flying officer.
With just a little bit of help from his driving number 8, Dean Richards. In the same mould as Richards, perhaps a bit more squat than Morley du Plessis, and certainly more abrasive, is Wayne Shelford. When he was captain of the All Blacks, they simply did not lose.
Shelford. Must be a try. He'll never get an easier try than that in international rugby.
With huge lower body strength, when Shelford picked his knees up, he always made ground and made things a whole lot easier for the All Black three-quarters.
22 in Welsh territory. Here's Shelford. Jones is there. Tried to get it to Deans. Charging is McDowell. That's the goal line. Now Deans to Fox. Big line up here. Kerwin. John Kerwin, number 2.
Shelford's was a time of total All Black domination, when all opponents were made to suffer.
Just a yard out from the line. Coming for an All Black, and another try. This time it's the skipper, Buck Shelford, as the All Blacks score their 7th try.
I think that I would certainly go for a Welshman, and I would go for Mervyn Davies. And the reason being because he played in a very successful Lions tour in '71 against the Blacks. And to play in a winning tour against the All Blacks, you've got to be something special. But then Swerve came out 3 years later and played in probably the most successful Lions side ever in South Africa. And admittedly, South Africa were slightly weak then because they didn't have much international competition. But Mervyn played in, what, 6 winning tests, or certainly 5 winning tests. No, he played in, let's just work this out.
Lots of winning tests.
Yeah, he had a great test record against the Blacks and the Springboks. He then continued playing superbly for Wales, because this was in Wales' heyday in the mid-70s, Triple Crowns, Grand Slams.
As captain as well.
He would have captained the 77 Lions tour had he not had his brain hemorrhage, because although Benny captained it, Mervyn was captain of Wales until he was taken ill. So he could quite conceivably have gone out and captained the Lions in '77. I would definitely go for Mervyn Davies.
Windsor using the tail, trying to find Mervyn Davies. Edwards to Bevan, along the line to Priest, to Gerald Davis. Andy Irvine coming outside his wing. That's going to land almost in front of the All Blacks post. Joe Karam is there. Gerald Davis is there as well. There's a try here from Mervyn Davies. This is absolutely sensational. Andy Irvine coming outside his wing, the man who made it. Then Gerald Davis coming up very quickly on Joe Karam, and half of the Barbarians as well. There was Gerald Davis, Andy Irvine, and then this surging drive by Mervyn Davies, the big Welsh number 8.
I think that line-out is essential, and on that basis I would count out Wayne Shelford and Dean Richards, great players that they are. You've got to have a ball winner at the tail of the line-out. I'm tempted to go with Mervyn Davies for the obvious reasons, but I'll bow down to Andy Ripley's knowledge of somebody who played against Maury du Plessis. I think if you play against a great and you can doff your cap and say, that's good enough for me, then I think that's a worthy enough compliment. So I think I'll go with Maury du Plessis.
The first Springbok in our world's greatest 15, Maury du Plessis.
We need 2 wing forwards now. And perhaps again we need an open side and a blind side. Are we playing open and blind? Does anybody want to play left and right on our perfect pitch against running opposition?
I think these days you've got to play an out-and-out flyer, and then a big man on the other side who can also jump a bit as well on the line.
I wouldn't be surprised if our best players are good enough to do both. But
okay,
I think you're right. We need
let's just have a little run through the list here.
Jean-Pierre Rive, the Hunter, a French record of 34 caps as captain. So often to be found alongside Rive, Jean-Claude Scrella, 46 caps for France. Ian Kirkpatrick, the All Black captain, the joint highest capped flanker. From Ireland, Fergus Slattery, 61 caps for his country. All Black Michael Jones, who began his career with the All Blacks in the same year as they won the World Cup. From Wales, Jeff Squire, 29 caps. And a man who played against him on many occasions, Roger Utley of England. And another great captain, Graham Murray of the All Blacks.
I would go for the All Black who's been injured recently, who...
I can't remember his name.
Michael, what's he called? That guy that runs around quick. I'll go for Michael Jones, although he's been injured.
Yeah.
Whether he gets back from that or not, but he has played some great rugby, and I go for Michael Jones as the flyer. And that is over and above people like Fergus, Nero. I mean, I would go for him as the flyer.
He has the advantage over the other two, that he's 6'3" and he's a great leaper in the line-out.
And a Christian.
Doesn't play on Sundays.
Another massive leap at the back of the lineup. The All Blacks winning them at will now. Here it is for Deans to Fox, missing out Taylor, looking for Kerwin. Here's Jones again. Support from Stanley. All Blacks close to the line, and no. Well, what more can you say about Michael Jones? Deans is back in position, feeds it up to Fox. Now Schuster. Here's Gallagher. Looking for and finding Jones. Michael Jones against Bronco. Stanley, try.
So many good flankers. The two outstanding open sides in my era were undoubtedly Slattery and Reeves. They were just absolutely immense. You might add Murray to that list, although he wasn't quite an out-and-out open side. But Slattery and Reeves both won a barrel load of caps, 50, 60 caps, captained their country, rarely ever played a bad game. Of the two, I would probably go for Slattery because I knew him, I played with him. He was slightly bigger than Reeves. But having said that, I never played with Jones, either with or against. I've watched him a few times, but not very often. But of all the people I speak to, the current players, the one name that crops up time after time is this guy, Michael Jones. Seemingly, he is just something completely exceptional. And I would probably fall in line with the two other judges in the panel. He seems to just be on everyone's fingertips as the outstanding talent of the last few years. So I'd go for Jones.
I think about Jean-Pierre Rive, he actually carried French rugby on his back almost single-handedly in the 80s, when it wasn't a difficult time, but it was fairly sticky politically, and there was Rive with his blonde hair, and he normally had a few streaks of blood in it, which he wiped all over his white shirt, and he was a sort of the figure everybody followed, and he was certainly the great hunter. The French call him the great hunter because he would just run on a much shallower angle than anybody else, simply to get to the breakdown first. And I remember there was me, I was doing my angle to avoid action at all costs. And Rive was, by the time he made his hit, I mean, he was literally 40 metres in front of everybody else. But I think that if he played against Michael Jones, he would spend most of the time running after Michael Jones, putting tackles in on the All Black. And I would follow suit. I'd go with Michael Jones.
It's interesting you say that, Eddie. I don't think Reeves was a showman by any manner of means because he would do the dirty work as well. I remember him in one test against Australia. He dislocated his shoulder. He was captain of the French team, refused to go off, and he played about almost the whole of the second half with one arm. The other arm was dangling away down here, and he was still going in with the tackles. I mean, it was suicidal mentality.
Romer to Bertrand. There's an overlap here. Inside, in fact, it goes to Reeve, and Reeve is going to set the seal on a great French victory. In sight of their biggest ever victory over Australia. 19 points to 0, they won in 1958. And Reeve could get a drive over for another score. The referee is there, and a try is given.
I've almost sort of gone for Jones and Jean-Pierre Rive.
As Jones being,
because we're just playing two left and right, because we've got such a big pack up front. But
well, your pack is so offbeat anyway. What the hell is that?
That's my feel. In fact, I would go for Jean-Pierre Rive as my other flank. I'd also actually incidentally pick him as captain.
Okay. I would certainly wouldn't have Jean-Pierre as captain. I think he was an appalling captain.
I know, but he makes great after-dinner speeches.
And he loses the place all the time. And I mean, he's very, very much.
Who could control a French
We can come back to the captain at the end.
Okay, well, we got one vote on the blind side for Jean-Pierre Rive. David?
I'm going to go for, I mean, it sounds parochial, but no blushing, because New Zealand loose forwards, I think, have at times dominated world rugby, and that's Ian Kirkpatrick. He was a great player, and he played on both sides. He was just great.
Was he not happier on the open side?
No, he really played often on the blind side. He played with Ken Stewart, Graham Murray, only for a brief period with Graham Murray. But no, he could play either side. He was big. He was 6'4" and powerful.
And it's going to be mighty hot in that front row. Great healing, the great pickup. Here's Blanco, Kirkpatrick. He's so big, and he's lost possession. The referee's given the score. See how the great Kirkpatrick, the big man, but great tackling by John Williams. And then the pickup by Sid Going. And this is where the All Blacks are strong. Look at that, Ian Kirkpatrick, the big man. He's got 30 yards to go. Can Barry John get him? He can't. What a try! That was brilliant. Ian Kirkpatrick stealing his way away. Look at him, forcing past one man, beating the cover, handing off. Barry Jones couldn't get there. What a score by the great man Kirkpatrick. What a try.
But again, I'd probably have to agree with David in that Ian Kirkpatrick was possibly one of these that you would categorise as a legend. He was a captain of the All Blacks and captained a very weak All Black side in '72. He had an outstanding tour himself, but I would probably go with Ian Kirkpatrick as the other wing forward.
Yeah, I'd just like to make a mention of Jeff Squire, who was originally number 8 and turned into world-class blindside wing forward.
And so the problem now for Wales is where to position their breakaway forwards. They'll adjust it depending on the situation. You'll notice here, as it's England's put in, they've gone into a 3-4 formation with the captain Jeff Squire, Eddie Butler going up as a flanker, and there's a try there for Squire. Well, that is absolutely incredible. The Welsh captain scoring his first try for Wales and putting his side ahead by 4 points to 3, 17 minutes gone. You notice it was the turning scrummage that did it, and the ball went loose there with Holmes helping.
Like Squire, Roger Utley could play anywhere in the back row.
Lauder on this side, this is Utley, caught by Lauder, but Utley's got it down. A captain's try for Utley. You see the leg up in the air, giving the little wave of Utley.
Jean-Claude Scrella is still involved in club rugby in France as coach of his beloved Stade Toulousain. As a player with France, he was the unsung hero between Rive and Bastia. And together, they formed one of the most formidable back row combinations ever seen in world rugby. From a Frenchman on the High Veld of South Africa to an Irishman at Cardiff Arms Park.
Here we are then, 10 yards from New Zealand's line. Going harassed by Edwards, slotted his pickup, and he scores!
And another winning visitor to the Arms Park.
Robertson over the 22, Murray's outside him, Stu Wilson coming inside, Murray scores! What a brilliant try! About 31 minutes of the match gone, Loveridge feeding from the breakdown.
The All Black domination of the pack is complete. Michael Jones at wing forward with Ian Kirkpatrick. And that means that we have 5 All Blacks in our side so far, 5 forwards. The Welsh have 2 players there, Graham Price, and at fullback JPR Williams, we have an Englishman and we have a Springbok. And that means we can move beyond the scrum to the halfbacks. Our scrum half list, Dave Loveridge, 24 caps for the All Blacks. And then the record breakers, Nick Farr-Jones, Australia's most capped scrum half. Gareth Edwards of Wales, their most capped scrum half. And New Zealand's, the great Sid Going.
Well, I think we can take it for granted that that forward lineup might win a bit of ball. Who's going to use it? Scrum halves. If I could just make a pitch here, I mean, there are some great names here. We've got Dave Loveridge and we've got Nick Farr-Jones. But for me, 2 players elevated scrum half play into a different dimension in the 70s, and that was Gareth Edwards and Sid Going. And I think ultimately it'll be between those. But I could be wrong, David. As a scrum half, you must have your own opinion.
Interestingly enough, both of those players coincided with the change in the laws. Their greatness coincided with the change in the laws whereby you couldn't kick to touch on the full. So the scrum half had to do more. They had to have a much greater range of skills. They had to be able to pass, run, control the tempo and flow of the game. And they're genuine greats. I think Sid Going was unparalleled as a close to the scrum runner, built close to the ground, powerful. A lot of criticism in New Zealand over the years that he did too much, took too much on himself, and the back play further out suffered. He wasn't the greatest passer, but a great player. Well, Gareth Edwards was just genuinely great. He had everything, controlled the play, and as Andy was saying earlier when we were discussing, if you played with Gareth, you were convinced you could win. He was that good. I'd probably go for Gareth.
And of course, Andy, he scored perhaps the most shown try of all times against the Barbarians in 1973.
Chased by Alistair Scone. Brilliant. Oh, that's brilliant. John Williams, Brian Williams, pulling. John Dawes. Great dummy. David, Tom David, the halfway line. Brilliant by Quinnell. This is Gareth Edwards. A dramatic start. What a score.
setting up these attacking positions with real aplomb. Lukes with the throw, just 2 yards out from the French line. Faulkner has it, worked back by Trevor Evans. Edwards is through in like a flash, and he's going to score. He's taking it round under the posts. There was the strength, the bit of guile. See how he changed directions. The kick is awry, but that was really the answer Wales wanted. Mervyn Davies to Edwards. Eluding Dort and Bertrand. Edwards still going. How's that for strength from a scrum half?
I actually played with Sid Going on a short tour I made to New Zealand on a guest exhibition tour, and he was fantastic to play with. Very difficult to play against, and a dream to play with. But Edwards just had that something special, because David alluded to the change in the laws about the kicking, but Edwards could kick as well. And that Lions tour in '74, he got a great ball from Mervyn Davies, but the number of diagonals he put in from the base of the scrum, and every time you could guarantee it would bounce just before the touch line and roll into touch. He had pace, he had power, great pass, great tackler, but above all, I've never met a more confident man. You'd sit in the dressing room, be worried about going out against, South Africa, going out against the Babas or whoever. Oh, it's only a game, boys. We'll stuff them, and we'll do this and we'll do that. And, that sort of, it filtered through into everyone. And I played many times with him. I don't think I ever lost a game.
Kevin Everly alongside Cobner at the back. Still about 8 metres out. Johnston at the front, going. Duncan Robertson. Osborne held about 15 metres out, but Osborne still going. Batty takes it. Good tackle by Brynmore Williams. Great ruck ball. Going, looking to the narrow side. Changes his mind and darts through himself. He's made it. Sid Going in his 28th international sets Athletic Park Wellington alight. And this was the moment that led up to the tie. It looked as though he was going to the narrow side. Then he saw the gap open before him and ducked down with tremendous force. Over he went for the first try of the Test series.
Sid Going was followed by Dave Loveridge in the All Black side, the pig farmer with the sweetest of passes.
Wayne Smith trying to set it up again. Loveridge on the wide outside. Gets past Paxton. And still, Andy Dalton now 10 metres out. The All Blacks in possession once more. Wayne Smith, Warwick Taylor looks for the gap, gets through the first one. Campbell gets the tap tackle to bring him down. 5 metres out. The All Blacks have it once more. Loveridge is through. Dave Loveridge's third try for New Zealand. The first score of this match. And the pressure was on. And he capitalised on it superbly well.
And a rival from across the Tasman Sea.
The quick throw in there to the scrum half. Far Jones has scored a brilliant try. Opportunism at its best. A third try for the Australians. And, well, they're virtually home and dry.
Well, Far Jones showing all the attributes of the fine scrum half that he is. Pace, quick in thought, still had it all to do. The jinking run, he's brave, he's tenacious. He can get round the prop forward, but he's still got to get around Stephen, but he's determined. How did he get over? Well, I think that is the strength and ability of a fine scrum half that he is.
You say Gareth Edwards, he's the man that we would all go for. But outside him, you've got Barry John, you've got Phil Bennett, because not only was he a great player in his own right, he also made a lot of other good players to be great players. And if you look at the Welsh side in the early 70s, the foundation was that half-back link, and Gareth Edwards would certainly be in my team.
Gareth Edwards it is, and I don't even have to use a casting vote. We'll save that one up for later.
The third Welshman in our world's greatest 15, Gareth Edwards at scrum half. 10 down, 5 to go. Next, we move to the linchpin of the three-quarters, the fly half. Phil Bennett, captain of the Lions in '77, 29 caps for Wales. Barry John, the man Bennett took over from, 25 caps for Wales. From the Southern Hemisphere, Mark Ella of Australia. And from South Africa, Nas Botha, 23 caps for the Springboks. And a player from beyond the mainstream, Hugo Porter of Argentina.
Well, I have chucked the ball at only one of those, and that was Hugo. I played with him in Auckland in an invitation match once, and he deserves special mention. Here's a man from a non top 7, as it were, country in the world, and he won so many matches. It was for Argentina on his own. He was so influential, and he's a powerful man, great on his feet, great kicker, great drop kicker, place kicker. It's very difficult to pick someone like that unless you've seen them play in great teams, because you're not quite sure how they're going to react in running matches when they've got great players around them. He was able to draw all the game to himself, so I'm not sure I can choose him.
And here's the great Argentinian Hugo Porter, who had a difficult tournament, except in the goal-kicking department.
Of the others you mentioned, Mark Ella had just wonderful touch. He was a great player to watch, throwing passes. His timing was beautiful, and a lot of what the Australian backs were able to do through large parts of the 80s was down to Mark Ella. But I think I will come down between Barry John and Phil Bennett, and I think I will go for Barry John, if only because I know he was the pivot who basically beat New Zealand in 1971, and he played with a wonderful forward back, wonderful backs all around, but his kicking and his control was magnificent. He's known as the king.
Barry John from the 10-yard line. It's on the right side of the field, incidentally, for his in-swinger with the right foot. Can he make it 2 points the difference with this kick? Yes, he can. Davis going in. Edwards to Barry John, looking for the drop goal. And he's done it. Barry John's drop goal.
From the 70s to the 80s, and a kicker to a non-kicker.
As the light begins to fade a bit, beautifully taken by Far Jones. Ella in turn.
Liner pierces through. In comes Matt Burke, and here's the try if Campese gets a decent pass. Campese cuts inside one. Ella loops round, and that's glorious support. And the try for Ella to match that he scored against England.
Liner with
Ella running round, sees the gap, he's under the post. Oh, that was lovely Wallaby magic. Mark Ella, 34 points against New Zealand in the last series, including a try in the second test, and that was a joy.
And so back to a kicker, a Springbok who could sometimes become a runner.
And Jacka Reinach with it into Nas Botha. And Nas Botha keeping it in play. Murray Mexted is there. And Nas Botha with it. And he's going to score. Nas is going to score. A lovely piece of work by the fly half. A slightly lucky bounce perhaps. But handsome is as handsome down. And it is 4 more points to the Springboks.
I think the one player that influenced me more than any other playing with and against was probably Phil Bennett, who was often misaligned as captain of the 77 Lions Tour. To me, he was a very good captain and an absolute genius to play with, particularly if the ground's hard. I mean, we did talk earlier about good conditions, and if the conditions are hard and it's a dry ball and Benny's got an opportunity to use his magical speed and sidestepping, I would go with Phil Bennett.
Comes back on the line side to Slattery. Slattery with men outside him. Inside beautifully to Phil Bennett. Look at that acceleration. Bennett with Billy Steele. Bennett on his own. Bennett 5 yards short. He's going to score. Phil Bennett. What a solo effort. He fooled them all the way. He had men outside him, but he didn't need them.
I'm a victim of my own prejudices, and I can remember Phil Bennett dancing with a slashed foot, blood all over the place, just breaking South Africans' hearts, just putting the ball down, and it's locked in my memory. So I say that for purely nostalgic, sentimental reasons. I'll go with Phil Bennett.
Well, whatever the reasons, the choice at outside half in our world's greatest 15 is Phil Bennett of Llanelli and Wales. That completes the half-back pairing in our world's greatest 15, a brace of Welshmen, Edwards and Bennett. Next, the centres. Philippe Sella, the flying Frenchman, making his debut in 1982. Danny Gerber of South Africa. Mike Gibson, a record 69 caps for Ireland.
two players I think have done wonderfully well at centre would be Sella for France and Danny Gerber from South Africa. Untouchable. He seemed to be able to beat people with power and skill and pace. Those would be my two picks at centre. At the inside, if we're going to play an inside centre and an outside centre, one of those two, and probably Gerber for me. Inside centre, I'm not so sure. Let me come back.
Okay, so we've gone for Gerber of South Africa to give it a bit of oomph in midfield.
And indeed, nobody was more solid than the Springbok in the middle of the park. Danny Gerber, all the strength and forthright running, which is the key to all South African rugby, whether it be amongst the forwards or indeed the three quarters.
Gerber na 'n wonderlike breekslag deur John Willett.
Suffering on this occasion in the early 80s with the English tourists of South Africa. Huge forwards setting up the ball, and then the most direct of running.
Prachtig hardloop hy. Danny Gerber en hy hardloop nog steeds.
I would also like to see an artist, and I spoke to Andy earlier, and we agreed in the sense that Mike Gibson has historically been a great ball-playing artist, and for me, I will put down two, Sella and Gibson.
Maloney, McComb, tackled by Old. Squires waits, that's Dennison. Dennison finds Mike Gibson. He's over the 25. Can Ripley catch him? It's a great try for Gibson.
Gibson for Ireland and Gibson for the Barbarians. A subtle role in one of the greatest matches of all time.
That's his genius. That's now Willie John. Tom David of Wales. Joe Curran's tackle, and it went forward. And that by Lindsay Colling, a great piece of play, but Duckham can keep it in. David Duckham. Lambert misses him. Kirkpatrick as well. Colling was in that again. Derek Quinnell, Dawes, Williams, Gibson. Gibson. Slattery to John Williams.
The other centre, I would choose between Sella and Gerber. You'd be looking for a big, powerful man. I think Sella has got a bit more flair and a bit more talent than Gerber. Perhaps not quite as powerful, he certainly is quick, but Sella has really done everything. He's been there for, what, 8 or 9 years now, got a phenomenal record, and if you've got Gibson and Sella as your midfield, there's not many teams going to get past you. Great combination.
I think Philippe Sella, for me, is the best tackling centre I've seen.
French drive in and steal the ball. Number 4, Alain Laurier, the try scorer, slips it back. Berbizier sniping. Cody, the tackler. Australia looking stretched here. Laurier again. What an inspired game from the big second rower, just outside the 22. Australia holding on here. Sella. Philippe Sella. He's over. Sensational try. He's 19th in test matches. And the French camp is jubilant.
Sella taking France to the World Cup final in '87, and a year earlier finishing off England.
Bonival, Charvet, can they make it for a most brilliant try? Sella has done it.
And here's our pairing in the middle of the field. At centre, Philippe Sella and Mike Gibson. And that means that the world's greatest 15 is nearly complete. All that remains to be done is pick the showmen, the flying men, the wingers. Gerald Davis, the record Welsh try scorer. Rory Underwood, he too has scored more tries for England than anyone else. John Kirwan, he leads the All Black list of tries. And top of the all-time pile, David Campese of Australia.
This one is a very difficult one. I think you've got to differentiate between left and right, and the only really outstanding left winger, because I think that's the easiest one to choose, in my opinion, would be David Campese. He's a bit of an extrovert. He can be a bit of a liability at times, as in the recent Lions tour, but I would reckon 19 times out of 20 he's going to get it right. He's a great entertainer. He's a powerful man as well as very quick. He's powerful, he's got great skill, great entertainer, great flair. He would be in my side.
That's better play from the forwards. Farr Jones has it. Liner steps beautifully. He's got Farr Jones in his pocket. Greg Campese, he's there. That's the world record. Australia back in the lead.
And technically they're very sound as well, and that's a good combination. Farr Jones, Ella, misses out Liner to Gould. Gould beautifully to Slack. There's a real chance here for Campese. That is one of the great tries of the tour.
I would go for David Campese. He's a great guy too. He loves his rugby. He plays it as if he loves it.
Yeah.
And those are the guys we want. Kerwin and Wilson are interesting. I mean, Kerwin, of course, overtook Wilson as New Zealand's greatest try scorer of all time.
The ball's out. Deans. Well, the Australians held off there. I don't know why, because the ball was out of the ruck. And New Zealand looking dangerous again. McDowell cleared it. Schuster. There's an overlap here for Kerwin. Try number 2. Grant Fox. Cut out now to Stanley. And here's Kerwin. He's through. And it's another New Zealand try.
The invention of Campese, the power of Kerwin, and the finishing skills of Rory Underwood.
Ackford robs. Drive by Winterbottom. Andrew travelling. Guscott again. Guscott the long one out to Underwood. Underwood going for the corner. Is it going to be a try? The referee is there. He'll have to ask his touch judge. The try has been awarded, and Rory Underwood has set a new English record.
He's got 2 and outside.
Speed, and then twinkle toes, Gerald Davis.
He's got 25 yards to go. What a run it is. He's gone under the sticks.
Kerwin, the specialist right winger, 15 stone, very quick. I mean, he's a freak in a sense. I would go for Kerwin. I played with him a lot. I know him well.
Campese and Kerwin?
Well, I would certainly give Kerwin on the right-hand side. I would have gone for Kerwin 2-3 years ago because, as we say, his Achilles heel, his Achilles has rolled out the back of his leg, hasn't it? Whether he can deliver the same now. But we're talking legends, and we're talking historical performance 2-3 years ago. Kerwin gets the ball, devastating to watch.
The Southern Hemisphere on the extremes of play. David Campese and John Kerwin.
Right, lads, if we just recap on what damage we have done to the history of rugby football. Our best ever 15 from the last 20-odd years is at fullback we have JPR Williams. On the wings we have John Kerwin and David Campese. In the centres, Philippe Sella, Mike Gibson. Outside half, Phil Bennett. Scrum half, Gareth Edwards. Loose head prop, Fran Cotton. Hooker, Sean Fitzpatrick. Tight head, Graham Price. Second row, Colin Meads and Andy Hayden. And number 8, Morny Duplessis. Alongside him at the forwards, we have Michael Jones and Ian Kirkpatrick. As a breakdown, that means that New Zealand have 6, Wales have 4, and there's 1 each from England, Ireland, South Africa, France, and Australia. Well, that's our 15. We don't expect, well, we haven't agreed amongst ourselves, so we don't expect you out there to agree with anything we've done. But what would you do? From all of us here in the Rugby Club, goodbye.